Let's move on to round number 2, which today we're going to be talking about some stolen valor. What do we got there, Kate?
Oh, yeah. We've covered her several times now because the case was just so crazy and wacky. And we knew people involved in it, so that we kept covering it because it was bizarre.
And there's also something about her. She looks like a female Marine, right? Like there's something about her that just has a very Marine-y kind of look. I don't know what it is, but there's like this je ne sais quoi of a Marine. And I feel like sometimes when I see pictures of her doing things, the way she stands and like holds herself and shit like that, I feel like it's very confident Marine.
I think that's in part because she worked at the VA and surrounded herself with Marines, and she was able to, people who do this are able to like chameleon on to whatever they see. But you're right. She did have an air of like, I saw her, I looked at her and I was like, oh, I've seen her 100 times before. Like, I know this type, like, yeah, I get it. So this is from Jeff Skogel at Task and Purpose.
And shout out Jeff Skogel. I love that dude. Like when we first had a relationship, not great. I was like, Jeff, you motherfucker, because he said something about CBT and he was joking in a blog about it, and it didn't come across to me as a joke. So we went back and forth at it. Now we're buddies. We DM all the time. He's like, hey, I think this is good for your show. Check this out. I love this dude. He even reached out to me yesterday when I said me and Kyle were going to Maine, because he works with Kyle at Task and Purpose now. He's like, you got to check out this movie before you go to Maine. It's about a cabin. I started watching it last night. Fucking horror movie. What about getting murdered in a cabin?
So now we know how Jeff really thinks about it.
He's still getting his jabs in at you. It's fine.
Yeah, like that's what you want. You want your social media guy and me to get murdered? We're pretty good dudes. We don't deserve that.
What movie was it?
I don't remember it. Let me look it up.
Cabin in the Woods.
Oh, chaps, you're going to Maine. You got to watch Maine Murder Cabin.
Evil Dead is what it's called.
Oh, chaps, why would you watch it?
Yeah, really.
Well, you never know.
Hey, chaps, you're going to a cabin. Maybe you should watch Friday the 13th.
Anyway,
watch Pet Cemetery, chaps.
A woman who falsely claimed to be a wounded Marine combat veteran who was dying of cancer to bilk veterans charities for more than $250,000 faces at least 2 years in prison under a plea agreement with federal prosecutors, according to the Justice Department.
So if she pleaded down, just a little inside baseball, she was probably looking at least 5 to 10 if she was convicted. To take 2, she was looking at a lot.
Yeah, so she just took 2. Sarah Jane Kavanaugh, age 31, has pled guilty to wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, forgery, and fraudulent use of metals, and to pay more than $82,000 in restitution, according to her plea agreement. The aggravated identity theft charge carries a mandatory sentence of 2 years, which would run consecutively to any other sentences imposed by the federal judge. In return for pleading guilty.
So do you guys know what that difference means?
So why I don't. They let you serve many terms at once. So if you have a federal charge and
a state charge and they run consecutively, that means that you do your federal time and then you have to do your state time. If they run concurrently, both times count the same.
Okay.
So if a federal judge, he's going to stay longer than 2 years. They're going to add it on.
Okay. In return for pleading guilty, prosecutors will recommend that a judge sentence Kavanaugh to a prison term at the low end of the guideline range. The plea agreement did not specify exactly how much prison time prosecutors believe she should receive. The max is 24 years in prison, a $450,000 fine, and 3 years of supervised release. So she won't be getting that. Kavanaugh's sentencing hearing has not yet been scheduled, but so it's looking like 2 years.
To give you a little quick backstory about what she actually did, she worked at the VA. She went into the medical records of one of her patients because she was a licensed clinical social worker. Mm-hmm. So she listened to these stories about service members coming back from deployments and what they had, and eventually adapted those own stories to meet herself. She even got involved with our guy, Thomas Schumann, who will eventually be a guest here when he's talking about his book that he completed with Zach, the Afghan interpreter that he served with in Afghanistan. They were working together with Patrol Base Abate. Tom, the major, noticed some inconsistencies in her story and started to look into it and found out that some of the things that she was claiming, like her brother had died in Afghanistan. She had gotten these awards for valor, that she was arrested under the UCMJ for attempted murder of one of her commanding officers. Mm-hmm. And they kind of like brushed it aside. There was a bunch of crazy shit. I'll look it up and I'll tweet it out tomorrow about what episode we got into the full details of the story. Yeah. Because if you want that refresher, it is remarkable
crazy story. And even after we did that first story on CBT, she had people so fooled that I got DMs from people who knew her, who were like, stop talking about her. You're wrong. I drove her to cancer appointments. And then after everything came out, they were like, oh my God, I feel like I've been stabbed in the back by her. I'm in shock. Like, she really fucked people up. And she fucked other veterans up who had trusted her
and felt awful for her,
and who felt terrible for her, who gave them her time, their money, their
organizations
everything.
Like Hunter 7 Foundation that just tries to help
legitimate organizations.
Yeah,
legitimate ones.
She really put people through the ringer. So do you guys think 2 years is enough? I feel like
no.
Fuck her. No. And I also feel
I kind of do, because I think that the American justice system is so long. Like, think about how long 2 years is. 2 years is a long time. Yeah. If you're not going to learn your lesson for this in 2 years, are you going to learn it in 5? Are you going to learn it in 10? I feel like rehabilitation should be the goal and not just straight up punishment.
Yeah, that's true. And part of me feels like people like her, though, like, they're addicted to doing that shit. Like, I feel like this won't be the last, that she'll move to some other state. So that's why
I think it should be more than 2, because I think if we give her 2, maybe she learns her lesson. But if she comes out in 2, it's fresh enough that she'll be like, all right, well, what's my next scam going to be?
But then again, we can't hold her accountable for future crimes, though. But I get
why not?
But anyway, so this made me look up. We Are the Mighty had a couple other crazy stolen valor cases that I had never heard of that are kind of recent. Well, this one's kind of recent. Have you guys ever heard of the James Clark story?
No,
I thought it was James Clark, who also worked at Task and Purpose.
No, this is different guy. Very different guy. So people first noticed something fishy. This is back in the early 2000s. So this is 2002, the year after September 11th, when patriotism was like at an all-time high. The love of the troops was whatever. And this guy took full advantage of that. So people first started noticing something fishy about James Clark. He's extremely obese, but he was claiming to be a Green Beret. And people first thought it was kind of fishy when he started dressing up in town. He's claiming to be a Green Beret.
I thought it was fishy because he was fat, and Green Berets.
Yeah, let's call it what it was.
But I mean, he's enormous, wearing like an XXXXXL army outfit in his town with a black beret, saying he's a Green Beret. It was just a black beret he had found. And he got caught trying to buy a ton of discount ATVs that he claimed were for fellow soldiers. So like in the wake of 9/11, he's like, I'm about to get some discount ATVs off this shit. Like, that was his. Then things went from slimy to sinister, but like people believed he was some military guy, because at the time, like, you didn't question that shit. Like, it was
doing stolen valor at that time. Like,
that wasn't even a thing yet, really.
Yeah. May 2002. That hadn't even, like, the war in Afghanistan hadn't kicked off yet.
Yep. So things went from slimy to sinister. This is kind of sad, but on May 26, 2002, a tugboat crashed into a bridge on the Arkansas River in Oklahoma. It killed 14 people and sent more into the water. People rushed to the river, desperate to save the victims. And then James Clark showed up. Not only did he tell emergency responders that he was in charge, disrupting the professionals who included members of the Army Corps of Engineers, the National Transportation Safety Board, and the FBI, he also went through the victims' personal items and commandeered a truck from a nearby dealership on the National Guard's orders. And the dealership believed him because he was in uniform and let him take the truck. He brought it to the accident site and then seemed like he was official and started going through like dead people's shit and stealing. So like he was, but wait, there's more. A real Army officer died in the accident.
I don't know if you guys are watching on the YouTube. I just read the next line that Kate's about to. And if you saw my face, it's because of what she's about to read. Wow. Yeah.
But wait, there's more. A real Army officer died in the accident. So Clark took it upon himself to break the news to the man's widow, keeping up the charade even in the face of a dead man's grieving wife. Captain Clark was finally called out by the town mayor, at which point he fled to Canada, where he hid for a few days before getting locked up in federal prison. I never heard this story.
Neither did I.
Holy fuck.
Nuts.
That's terrible. But also, like, I'm not excusing it, but you have to have something wrong with your brain, your mental capacity, that you would do that much and go to that extent that you would keep up the charade and tell a grieving widow about what happened to her husband.
You see crazy. The uniform giving you a little bit of power.
Yeah.
And you're like,
this
is fucking sick. Yeah. I'm going to keep going. Like, you're just a fucking asshole. Then there was the nutty professor. This is a second story. I can go to the next topic if you want, but I thought these were interesting, crazy cases I'd never heard of. Okay. This next one.
This is great. Wow.
Dedicating yourself to a life of teaching others is a valiant occupation unless you're William Hiller and the knowledge you're passing on is complete bullshit. This former Army colonel, faked a PhD and was teaching college students about counterterrorism, drug smuggling, and human trafficking. In reality, he knew about none of it. He also claimed that the movie Taken was inspired by his own life.
I love that. That's a good move.
That's such a bold claim. Oh yeah. I mean,
I hope he doesn't do anything like really egregious, like with the widow in the last story, because I want this guy to get away with it so far.
Yeah. Well, he imagine being in a bar and some guy's like, you see the movie Taken?
And I don't even have a problem with him faking being a colonel and teaching these classes, because in reality, at that time, if it was early 2000, these colonels have no idea either. Like, you're going to be talking about teaching counterterrorism in 2003. You don't fucking know what that was in 2003. You're just guessing.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what year this was, but this was definitely like at least a decade ago. He also
read this next line.
He said his daughter actually died in real life after being sold into sex slavery and was hacked to death with machetes.
Nope.
This obviously
guy now. I'm out.
Yep.
You got to be on
this guy.
This obviously never happened. Schools and conferences around the country scrambled to get Hiller to speak at their events. Oh, this guy actually had his daughter chopped up. We got to get him in here. We got to have him on the show. That's
I mean, it does fucking grab a headline.
It puts asses in seats, as fucked up as that is. And it wasn't just civilians he fooled. Many of his students were active duty service members. So people like troops, same with Sarah Kavanaugh. She worked directly in that world and everyone believed her.
Well, I think in general, people are just very accepting when you come at them and say, I'm a veteran and I've done these things.
Why
I think
the fuck would you lie? Like, most people are good. Right.
I think you default to just like, wow, that's pretty impressive. Or wow, I get it. I believe you. So you would never think to question anything. I think it's only until you start to get a little too rambunctious with your storytelling that then it starts to raise red flags, which it seems like happened here.
Yeah. So it took 10 years. He did this for 10 years and he probably made so much money speaking gigs and stuff like that.
Speaking engagements pay so much.
Yep. Hiller finally ignited the suspicions of the special forces community, and the imposter, who had never served in the military and never even graduated college, was outed as a fraud once and for all.
Like, to me, this is a big, what the fuck is that college doing? Like, how do you hire somebody as a professor and you don't look into their credentials? Like,
dude, I promise you right now at colleges across the country, you'll find some of these. You'll find this.
I mean, I guess because if you're in HR, we need to get an HR person. How often do you guys actually look into whether somebody graduated from college? Because I'm just going to start putting Princeton on my shit. Just put Princeton on there. Like,
yeah, why not?
I think too, it's like, oh my God, this guy's like a trafficking expert who has like a real life story, blah, blah, blah. He's like going to be a hot ticket item. Other universities are going to want him. Let's just give him the offer now.
And you're probably like, who do you call? Like, even if you wanted to check, like if you're working at a normal university, like let's say you're working at UTSA, like this colonel, like you're going to call the president? Like, who are you calling to confirm? Because you're not going to give your social security number. And there's so many names, especially if this dude has like a very common name. There's got to be another William Hillar that's in the military at some point. How do you figure this out?
Surely. Yeah, it's crazy. And this last one is somebody who made it all the way to Congress. Okay. Douglas Stringfellow. This is way back in the 1950s. Douglas Stringfellow knew, and even back then, a surefire way to earn the love of the American people: have a military record. Luckily, he had one, a World War II hero and a Silver Star recipient, or at least that's what he told everyone. He claimed to have been a member of the elite OSS intel agency that went on to become the CIA eventually, that undertook a mission to save nuclear scientist Otto Hahn from the Nazis, only to be captured and tortured by Germans until he was paralyzed from the waist down. In reality, he had only been a private in the Air Force, never did anything. The OSS thing and the Silver Star, complete bullshit. But the most shocking lie of all, he was not paralyzed, not even a little bit.
Man.
Whoa.
I was going to say, look, if you're paralyzed in the 1950s, it's not like now where you have all these, like the different ADA and all that shit where you can get away with it. I wouldn't blame him for doing it in the 50s, but to not even be paralyzed, buddy, if you're going to do this, you got to go all the way and dive headfirst into a shallow end to make sure that people buy the story.
Yeah. Well, he became, people of Utah bought it. Him and his wife kept him in a wheelchair at all times, no matter what. And Utah voted him into Congress. But however, he got outed. Finally, he must have accidentally stood up to grab something someday and he got caught. After 2 years in the position, his secret got out and his image was destroyed. Even the Church of Latter-day Saints, his place of worship, shamed him, forcing him to make a public confession of his misdeeds.
And let's put this into your context, Kate. If you were dating or in a serious relationship with somebody, how in the fuck could you be attracted to them if you know that they're faking being paralyzed and a war hero and you're helping?
If you want to be a congressman's wife or a congressperson's husband, like if you want to be a socialite and be somebody in town,
protect your status too.
It's your status as well. So you're in cahoots together. But I mean, imagine pretending to be paralyzed for 2 years. Thank you.
All right. Really quickly, let's go around the room. You get to add right now, you can add one fib to your backstory of who you are as a person. That's believable, right? What would you add to, like, if I just met you, Kate or Chaps, and you were telling me all about yourself, what's one thing you would add to your life experiences where you think, all right, this is believable, but it's completely false?
Okay.
That I am actually, I don't talk about this a lot, but I'm actually the first child of Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Okay. Just the same age.
Yeah, I don't know how those math works out.
Is he your age? He's got to be around the same age as you.
Tim Allen.
No, that would work. I could actually see that.
I'm the love child of Tim Allen and Jill from Home Improvement. They actually had a kid, and I am that baby. That would make people really think I was so cool.
Because there's basically that TikTok trend where it's like people who look a little bit like one of the child stars will be like, nobody's going to remember you from 20 years ago. And then they'll have Icebox from Little Giants show up.
Yeah.
Kate, that's so believable too. Cause you're like, why can't you find anything on the internet? Well, cause they kept it quiet. No one didn't want anyone to know.
Kept it quiet. Wow, that's a terrible one by me, but go ahead, guys.
I think that's awesome. Cause we all grew up watching Home Improvement. I would say something like I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro when I was in high school. And it's like, oh, wow, why didn't you have pictures? Well, I didn't own a camera, and we didn't have phones back then, but I did it. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
I believe you saying that.
Right.
Did you?
Yeah, of course I did.
Yeah, I would believe that. Absolutely.
1999, freshman year in high school.
I dropped my Kodak, my Kodak winder up.
Yeah, my disposable camera that I brought with me to take all my pictures. I lost it.
Right. Chaps?
Mine would be that my penis is actually average size and not really small. Let's move on to round number 3.